Hello. Yes, I'm Brenda Bartholic. I've been with ATPCO for about 35 years. 35 years, wow. I kind of ran that by my team when I was talking a little bit about what I was going to talk about today, and I got hit with we weren't even born yet, and that kind of hurt. But I deserve it because I did that to a lot of people when I started at ATPCO, and paybacks are hell, right? But I started in the IT department. In 35 years, a lot has happened. We were still doing paper filings back then, but I was hired into the IT department. So we had just started doing a lot of the automations. I then have spent the last 8 years in the business team. So from a transformation perspective, ATPCO has gone from paper to automation, and then there was a period where the airlines wanted to maintain their own data. We had tariff areas that were doing it in our own company at ATPCO, and so we created then applications that had a lot more help and functionality in them. And then of course now we're transforming again. The airline shoppers that are out there, which I am much of the time, as Carrie and Megan were going through, they're demanding personalization, granularity. They want offers, they want rich media, they really want it really tailored to them. So you're demanding change. You want more data, more content, and so we're demanding change of ourselves, and we're transforming again, as you've heard from a lot of the things that went on yesterday and even this morning. So it sounds pretty demanding. Who is pricing data? I'm the director of pricing data, and many of you, I think, have already been out to our booth. Shout outs to Dave and Arina and Eloise and Carla, and also to Shelley, who came over from distribution to help us out when the booth got really full. So I'm going to showcase a little bit today about what we've done recently for you, things that are available now. But pricing data for us is basically fares, rules, footnotes, routings, fare and fare-related data in the fees, and basically how you're maintaining that today at ATPCO and how you're getting it to ATPCO and what solutions we're providing to make that easier for you. So, data growth. You can see data, I think this slide was shown yesterday. The key about this slide is that data is still growing. And that's important because a lot of the things that we're doing are supplying the needs of today and where you're headed tomorrow with dynamic pricing, the NDC, branded fares. And they changed my slide, sorry. So basically there's 233 million fares out there today for 439 airlines with 160 countries, and there's 3.5 million changes a day. And you might think that doesn't sound like a lot when there's 223 million fares out there, but in order to get that done, you get the data comes in, you have to analyze it, you have to compare it to a lot of other things, you have to compare it to your strategies, you might need approvals, then you have to actually go out and make those changes. So to effectively manage that change, as data's coming in, at times every hour requires more automation and more tools. So with all that data, it's a challenge then to be able to make those changes. You cannot spend time on other initiatives that might be something that you want to do. And also there's a chance that there's more errors, right? You've got a lot more changes going through and you need to double check them and you don't have time to do that. So this reminds me of a story of Michael Bloomberg. It's not going to be a political speech, I promise you. But Michael Bloomberg is a historian. He was an entrepreneur, a newspaper entrepreneur. He was also mayor of New York, but he was also a licensed pilot. And he was very successful in his business. And when he was asked, why are you so successful in what you do? He said, I always have an edge in everything that I do. I just always want to have a little bit more just to make sure in case I need it. Well, one day he took his nephew out flying in the plane. He was a licensed pilot, as I said. And they took off, and not soon after they took off, the engine died. And he looked around the cockpit, tried to see if he could fix anything, and realized that he was not going to be able to do that. So he radioed down to the airport and said, I need to get in quickly. And they brought in fire engines, and he went through his checklist, was very calm, executed everything, and spoiler alert, because the plane's already on the ground, he made it. And everything was great. So he goes into the gate, and they asked him, they said, what do you attribute, the successful landing of this plane? I mean, everything died up there and you made it down. And he said, well, they said, was it your calm demeanor? Was it, your skill as the pilot? And he said, no, it was because I had an extra edge. He said, whenever I take off, the first thing I do is gain as much altitude as I can, just in case I ever need it. So what is the edge that you're gonna have? We need to develop a winning edge, because small differences in your performance can lead to large differences in your results. And so we need an edge, and the edge that we have been providing and working on, the tools we're going to share with you today, are more automation. We have it today, but you need more to manage the process. And today, in a lot of areas, we found you're still doing the process. So some of these tools will show you how you can focus on fewer and manage more. You want to be able to set the process up, move the levers, have it work for you. So the tools I'm going to showcase today, and again, we've been talking about them at our booth so far. Fare Builder is what we're currently calling the tool. It's sort of in a prototype stage, but it's actually in production and working with over half a dozen airlines. But it was first released last year, and it's currently managing many fares, or managing a large variety of fares, with you just focusing on a few. We have, even though it's just in the early stages, it's already managing over 500,000, and we expect it to be managing over 1 million fares with just a few set of fares by the end of the year. The second tool streamlines managing who can sell your fares. We know that you have tens and thousands of selling locations, and so we've worked to centralize this so that it's more efficient for you. Carrier-imposed fees is worth billions of dollars in the industry, and there's a lot of data out there for those of you that are filing that data. So we've created a tool that will help you validate, do you have everything set up properly? Express Contracts is a tool that some of you may have heard of already. It's been out there. We created this tool with a tech company in Scotland, Valaro. It's a small company, but they're high energy, very dynamic, and have done a lot of work to help us get the functionality in this up, and to also incorporate APIs that we've been creating this year that have increased the speed in which it processes your contracts. And finally, there's a few things on Fare Manager, which is our online application that many of you have been using for many years. So Fare Builder, what is Fare Builder? Again, as I said, it creates a lot of fares based on a few subsets. Some examples of ways you could use this would be branded fares. Many of you have set up a branded fare structure, and the different brands are based on one level. You can start at the top tier or the bottom tier. You create that tier, and then you set up a formula based on the difference between that tier and the next tier, and then you can take that same base set to the next tier, or however you want to lay that out. And what it does is, once you get the instructions set up on that base set of fares, it automatically will create the other sets for you as created fares. This is not, for those of you that know the fare by rule, we send the rules out, we send the fares out, but we don't actually create the fares for you. Here we actually create specified fares that you file that exist on our database. You can use this for your loyalty programs, where again, you have a set of base fares that you want to use, a set of reference fares, and you can create your loyalty program off of those fares. Whenever the base fare changes, it will automatically synchronize the data to whatever you have said is the data I want it to create. Same with promotional fares. You want something in on Thursday, you want it out on Sunday. So you create it, you set it up. When you delete the instruction that you put on those base fares, it will go cancel your fares. No longer will you have one fare sitting out there that you missed, that you were trying to get out of the market, because it canceled all of them, because that's how you set it up. It's doing the work for you. And same with one-way round trip. When you base, if you're using that to base, your round trips are based on your one-way or opposite of that, set it up, and then when the one set changes, it keeps them in sync. The other value to this is, for some of you that know fare by rule on fare by rule, people have been asking for discounted fares to be able to discount them. So because this creates the fares in our system, you have your base set, you have your created fares. Now you can point a fare by rule to those created fares, and therefore get a discount on your discounted fares. So it's got a lot of advantages here that will help track a lot of data for you. So you look at your data and you find out where you have these. We are interested in any other use cases. This is just some of the use cases that we know it's being used for. If you have other ones, we'd like to work with you to help build that out. Centralized agency control record. So how many selling locations do you have? And do you care who sells your fares? I mean, because if you don't, then maybe you can just tune out for this part. Do you ever miss one as you're trying to go back into the data and add one or take one out? Maybe a contract's expired and you missed a place and they're still selling and you didn't intend them to do that. As the data continues to grow, we realize there's a need to put some efficiencies in this area because it's become very daunting for you to manage all of this. So what have we done? Well, we know that a lot of you have ways in your own organization where you are tracking your selling locations by some theme. For instance, strategy or TMCs, a res desk, your geography, the fares can only be sold in France. So taking all those strategies, what you can do now is you can take them and create what we call a record G. So it's a grouping, it's a place to put all of them and hold them here. And then what you do is you say, okay, I've got all these record Gs, they're my groupings of sellers. And then you take the fares that you would like these apply to and you link them together. So now instead of having it linked with all these selling locations, you have it linked with a group of selling locations. So that whenever let's say you set up a strategy and you want to add a few more sellers in there, now you don't have to go to all the places to add those in. You go to that strategy record, that record G, you add it in, you file that one record, and all of them are changed. So it's fantastic. We are adding a few more features into this to make it easier for you to get those record Gs to us. This was something, again, developed as a prototype, and we worked with a subset of airlines to get the right features in there. So please, again, talk to the people at our booth or go to in the Choose Your Own Adventure, we have something, a little more detail on these in the data avalanche portion. So how much revenue can you gain by getting your contracts to market in less than a day? A lot of changes happen with contracts. So you have corporate policies, and then many times you set up a contract, a special program you created, and it has policies. So then your salespeople go out and they start selling those contracts. And what happens today typically is all that information, then the new paper contract gets given to your implementation group, and they have in their heads all the information about what your specific policies are. Using Express Contracts, you can take that data and put it into Express Contracts. And then when a new contract sale occurs, if you automate the whole process, or you can do it manually using what we call the standard instruction, and it's actually an Excel document at this point. You code that information in, it goes into Express, and Express takes that information and it goes to the rules system and it creates all those tables, it does all that work for you. You don't have to do that work. So basically, the contract comes in, a lot of them get processed in under 15 minutes. So for those airlines that have automated the process, it's seamless. The salespeople sell it, they get it into the system, and it's out the door. We have, as I said earlier, we have worked with Valaro to get the new APIs that the team has created into the product, and 70% of all the contracts for processing are in less than an hour. And now that may seem less than an hour, but a contract can have many locations, it can have many tariffs, many rules, it can have all your partners in it. So some of these are quite large contracts. We had one airline that turned over almost all their contracts in a weekend. They said they couldn't have done that in a month, over a month. So it's pretty impressive what it can do for you if this is something where you would like to get some more automation. Carrier imposed fees. There are tens of thousands of sequences out there, pieces of data points out there for many of you. And knowing if you have your data set up properly can really be a challenge. Now, some of you might say, well, I can check different things in the GDS, but let me tell you a little bit about what you can do here and go out and see a demo of this tool, because What we want to know is, are we on track with this? Is this something you want us to continue to build out, or do you really believe you've got this functionality somewhere and you don't need this coming from us? But what we do is you enter an itinerary, you select the airlines that you want to care about on that itinerary, and then we use the OAG to build out a list of routings for you. And then you can pick the routing that you want to see what's happening. And then what it will do is show you what fees should be collected, what our data is telling you for each of those different sectors. And the nice thing that it does above the others is it will actually tell you in the data that we have, where did that fee come from? So if you go, that isn't what I intended, that's not what I meant to do, you can now see where to go in the data to start seeing what's wrong, what am I doing wrong? So again, this is something that is new. We're just putting it out now. So please take a look at this. If you don't have a time to do this time, let us know. But we're looking to see if there's more use cases and how we can provide more value here if this is something that you need. And then finally, Fair Manager. This is our online application. We've had a team that's been out looking at all of our business requests. They were called, some of you might have heard, the Rapid Delivery Team. And what they've been doing is adding efficiencies in there, consolidating data in the user experience so that you could update more data at one time. They've added in safeguards for things that you were doing inadvertently that were stopping things from auto pricing. Like for instance, one of the actions that's taken a lot is to do copies. And if you copy from one tariff to another, sometimes the geography is off and you don't realize that. So we've put validations in there to help you because it doesn't matter if it's going to market, if it's not going to auto price. So Eloise at our desk can share more information about some of the things that were put in there. You'll see a lot of them when you're in there actually using it, some new validations that help protect you. So the edge to managing your data is automation, and it's not new, but these things are all, again, to help you manage more with less focus so that you can set it up and let them work for you, let the machine do it. So you have more time discovering things you should do, you're reducing errors, and less time on getting done things you already know you need to do. So get them set up and then move on. So again, we have our Pavilion booth out there. We're going to be in the Choose Your Own Adventure, how to stand fast under the data avalanche, to get more information on the first two tools. So please, take a look at what we've got to share with you. So thank you. And our next group is going to be the distribution group. It's going to be Brian Trauger and Jeff Welch. I have been here 35 years, so I've worked with them their entire career here. Two great guys, and they'll be talking a little bit about how data gets out of ATPCO. So anybody who thinks that these new tools are of value, can you take your happy cards and show your happy cards? Woohoo, yay, thank you. All right, lots of happy cards. Thank you very much.